Hello, I'm Steph, My Driver Classic, and today I'm showing you a car that really hasn't been on my radar, but one that quite a few of you have asked to see. It's a Saab 900. Now, I came down earlier today to test Craig's Leyland P76, which you might have seen recently on the channel. And he said, Steph, I've got this Saab 900 that I think you're really going to like. And it wasn't a car that I'd ever really thought, oh, I must drive it, it's on my dream drive list. But so many Saab owners and so many viewers have said to me, Steph, you're going to drive it, you're going to fall in love with it, you have to try it. So I thought this is my golden opportunity to see if what everybody's saying is right. Now, this is a car that was so brilliant and masterful when it came to market that people immediately said it's not only going to be a classic in the future, but it is a classic now. So there's lots of hype, there's lots to live up to, but I'm walking into this with no preconceived ideas of my own, which makes it quite an interesting test drive. Now, if you've never joined me for one of my drives before, we go for a walk around the outside, we look at it all, we look under the bonnet, especially looking at that 16 valve engine, and we're going to look in the boot so you can see how much boot space there is. We look and see about the legroom, and I even walk you through the dash, and I'll show you some of the Saab quirks on this one. So buckle up, we're going to go and have a look at a Saab 900. The Saab 900 is a car which comes in two generations. You've got the first, which runs from 78 until 1994, and then you've got the second generation, which feels relatively short-lived in comparison because that only then runs on until 1998. Now, it is worth noting here that the turbo wasn't available until 1979, and the convertible turbo, which is what we've got today, is only available from 1986, with this one being 1988. It's relatively a new concept at this point. Saab really knew what they were doing with this one and designed not only for their core audience in Europe, but thought of the American market too, which is why you'll note that longer nose than the Saab 99. Well, that's partially the reason. So first of all, this generation is built on the Saab 99 chassis, which had preceded the 900. And of course, things have moved on since they'd designed the 99. And the longer nose not only allowed for those turbocharged engines and the aircon, which wasn't available when they'd first designed the 99, but also it meant that the cars met American safety regulations. So they had regulations around front end collisions. And so what that then meant is that Saab had to go back to the drawing board and just make sure things were right. And with that, they do get things very right. And you'll see this throughout the car, which is why I have ambitiously given this video the title, one of the best 80s classic cars. Now, the Americans were so pleased with this design that Saab produced that they built the 900 as one of the safest cars around, or the US Highway Lost Data Institute certainly did. And that wasn't the only accolade coming from the US, because the magazine American Car and Driver named the 16-valve engine as the best engine. Now, I'm not sure what this was up against, but basically when I was doing research, I found a Saab brochure produced around about the time that this vehicle came to market, and they touted this as a fact. Although engines do vary as you go through the production range. Now, from 1985 onwards, you get the 16-valve engine if you go for the 900S or the turbo, as we've got here today. Now, if you were watching the pennies and you really wanted a 900 but you could only afford the basic, you got the earlier 8-valve engine. Now, in the earlier models, and I'm talking pre-1984, and I imagine some of those stragglers that fell into 1984, which got registered later on, you get the B engine, which is actually a Triumph-derived engine. Now, if you go later than this, you'll then be getting the Saab H engine, which is a redesign of that B engine, and that H engine is what we've got here today. So being the turbo and a little more fancy than your base model, we've got the 2-litre 16-valve in this, and that gives us 0 to 60 in 9 seconds and 145 brake horsepower, which is more than enough for a thrilling ride in this lovely convertible. The engine was then paired with a 4 or 5-speed manual, and you'll see me show you the 5-speed manual as we go out later on and talk about some of the quirks with that, the 3-speed Borg-Warner or the T37 Auto. And it wasn't just the engine which upgraded throughout the production of the Saab 900 Classic, as this first generation is known. And the long run of the first gen meant that really a facelift was inevitable at some point, and Saab undertook this in 1987. So that's when you see the cars come in with the new headlights, the grille and the bumpers. There were around in total sort of 200, 202,000-ish first generation turbos and 50,000 convertibles, and many of them still survive today due to Saab's excellent build quality and a high regard amongst motorists with a keen eye for a car which will last. The convertible was described by Saab as the frivolous sister in a family of no-nonsense brothers. And remember, when we were talking about that safety, that quality, that reliability, with a bit of frivolity on the side, I'm sold already. Now, coming inside here, we go back to the word quality. Now you can see that this is a car that has been used. It's got over 130,000 miles on the clock. So it's not a low mileage example, which actually makes it a really good example to test, because we can see how well it lives up to all those promises that Saab bring to the table. And one of the first things that caught my eye was the fact that all the high traffic areas have aged remarkably well. So like we look at all of this, we look at the steering wheel, and none of it is really showing its age. These seats, again, have held up very, very well indeed. And so for me, it already ticks that quality box. Now I'm going to tell you something interesting about this dash. So we talked about Saab being, that aerospace technology, they had that intelligence in-house, and they take it into this car and they do something very clever. So they looked at the driver and they looked at the driver behaviour, and they said, what are people most likely to use, and what are the high traffic areas and buttons and controls that people reach for not once or twice in a journey but frequently. And then they set about designing a dash where your eyes would be on the road and not down here or over there or over there. Your eyes were connected to that road as much as you could and not having to fumble about. Now this is one of my biggest complaints about modern cars and infotainment systems, and something that I think BMW have got really right actually with the new Mini and simplifying it all, is that they're returning back to that idea of driver's eyes need to be on the road, not down here on a screen, because the more that your eyes are off the road, the more likely you are to have an accident. And again, it's playing into that safety aspect. So that explains things like this radio being up here, because they know that the driver, I guess it would have been a tape player at the time, would have been fumbling around with the tape. Now if it's down here, like it is on my Proton, you're down here. When it's up here, you have got kind of one eye on the road and one eye here. That's probably a really small example, but I wanted to show you that in action as to how it works. But what have we got? Well, first of all, you've got this, by the way, I really like the curve line of this dash. It's very attractive. But coming over here, you've got your glove box, which faces away from you, folds down and gives you 2 cup holders and ample space inside. Almost as much space as we had in that P76. So I guess my complaint that the glove box wasn't very big was justified. Coming into the centre here, you've got your stereo to the top, you've got your heater controls here, and you come down into some various bits. So you've got your heated screen, you've got your hazards, you've got your cigar lighter, you've got your ashtray. Just keep losing it, it's just plumbed in here. And I'm frightened to take this out because it's not being used very much, so it's quite stiff. We've got that just there. Coming down from there, you've got a couple of cubby holes just to pop your bits and pieces in, and then you've got your roof buttons here. So in terms of that, it's essentially, it comes forward. I keep worrying that I'm going to mess it up, but it comes forward and it's a couple of clips, and again, it's all very simple. And some roofs you're just trying to fumble and fumble and fumble, whereas with all of this, with it being electrified, it's very simple to sort. Now coming across from there, I'm going to come back to the key, which is down there, and tell you something interesting in a minute. You've got your rev counter, you've got your clock, you've got a speedo, you've got your fuel gauge, and you've got your temperature gauge over there as well. Now all of this is again remarkably simple, because Saab really understand that the driver's attention needs to be on the road ahead of them. So many manufacturers start putting in various little quirks and funny little bits and pieces to almost add a bit of excitement, but actually your excitement should come from the driving experience, not what's on the dash. And then you've got a series of controls down here, and again you've got your goodness me, what's it called? The control here, just to move your mirrors as well, because that's all just on there. So again, a lot of cars, you're reaching over and you're having to adjust it like that. Whereas with this, you can see there, you're barely having to take your hand off the steering wheel to move that. For me, this is just really spot on in terms of the layout. It feels very rational, and it feels like it's been well thought out. Quite a few cars you get into and you think, blimey, the person designing this, have they ever been in a car? Have they driven? And I think a lot of thought has gone into it. So coming down from there, you've got your cruise control just here, which just clips on and off. And again, something that I will say is we talk about that quality, and I try and keep manufacturers' buzzwords or real marketing push words in my head when we look at cars, and I try and think, how true is it? Now on this, any area where someone's hands are quite a lot, I've noticed that they've used high quality plastic that really lasts. And again, these controls here that they use for the windscreen wipers and the indicators on the left, and the cruise control, sorry, on the right, and the cruise control on the left, it's very sturdy plastic and it's heavy duty. So again, just another plus point and something they've really thought about. Now let's talk about this key, because this is a bit bizarre. So in terms of your key, to remove it, you actually have to be in reverse, so you can't just accidentally knock it out. And again, it's just one of these little safety features that they've put in to enhance the driving experience. And I think it doesn't feel dated, does it, when you come inside here? You see cars in the 90s that don't look as together and forward thinking as this, I don't think. It wears its age very, very well. Unlike me, because it is actually the same age as me. So, check that's in neutral. I'm going to start it out. Now I spoke to you about that engine as we were walking around. So remember, we've got a top speed of, I think, 124 miles per hour. And it sounds absolutely delicious. Right, let's go on an adventure. I got told the turbo kicks in at 3,000 revs. We will get there, speed bumps or no speed bumps. But let's just get past these speed bumps first. Now the first thing I will say is you can feel that this car has so much more to give straight from the bat. So the minute you get in, you turn that key and the car's like, yeah, I'm here, let's go, 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 go. It's so, I can't even begin to describe it. It's just so full of life in a way that I'm certainly not used to. I think once we get over here, we've got another couple of speed bumps and I can open her up and show you what she's capable of. We can try and get that turbo to kick in as well. Now in terms of talking about what it's like to drive, the first thing I want to point out is the visibility. Now this was a deliberate thing by Saab. So what they did was they deliberately designed it with the curves, like you've got the decent sized curved screen, you've got these slim pillars, the seating position of where you're seated. It's all been designed to offer you maximum visibility without eating into that safety thing. And I was talking to you earlier, wasn't I, about how it was voted one of the safest cars. Now I have been warned that when I put my foot down and I get that turbo to kick in, to be going on the straight, because apparently otherwise it can be sort of like a bucking bronco, so maybe won't kick into it until we're around this corner. Am I frightened that I'm going to lose control? No, but it's always worth being careful. Now I will say as well that the steering feels exceptionally light. It doesn't need any overcorrection. This is such a golden age of motoring. I think that you've got different periods that are a golden age in their own right. You've got the 50s and 60s where you've got classic cars start to go from being, you know, your pre-war stuff can feel a little bit slow to be using on the motorways. So you get that mid-century styling where you get all that beautiful chrome finishing, and then you get the eras like this where it notches up to that next level because they're just so usable. Now here we go, come on, let's go for it. Just drop down a gear. Oh my god! Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm sold. It's good. This is very, very fun. And remember, did I tell you earlier, we've got the 5-speed gearbox in this one, although you did have a 3-speed auto option as well. I'm so pleased that we've got the 5-speed, because I'm much more of a manual than an automatic girl. But I guess if you're in a bigger country where these sold into, that automatic might be something that's more suitable for you because you're doing a bit more, or if you're doing a lot of around town driving where you just can't be chewed with changing gear every 2 minutes, also probably a very good option. Now I don't know whether it's because it's a convertible or the turbo just kicked in and took my life from 0 to 100 straight away, but this is really good fun. Now this isn't my era of cars, even though I do consider it a golden age, because they're so usable and they've got all the mod cons that you need to make it a daily car. But even I, someone who's firmly stuck in that 50s, 60s era, can see the joy in this. I can see why every reviewer that took it out gave it a glowing review and said, this is absolutely bang on the money. Saab have got it so right with this. And you know what? My complaint with cars of this era is that when you're going slow in an older car, it's still a lot of fun. Sometimes when you get into your 80s and 90s stuff and you're going slow, unless you've gone for a hot hatch or something that's a little bit quirky off the bat, it can feel a little bit too mundane for my liking. Whereas this, look, straight away, it's giving it its all. Look at that. I'm going to have to be a bit careful because I could definitely get myself carried away in this. Oh, it really brings you to life and adds colour to a driving experience in a way that I've not really felt with an 80s car before, or certainly a sensible 80s car. Yeah, you can take out a mad hot hatch that's been modified to the ends of the earth and you will have an exciting driving experience. But if you saw one of these parked in a car park, I don't think you would immediately look at it and think, that is going to give me an exhilarating driving experience. But that's certainly what I'm getting today. Now, I have to be objective, and what would I change? Now, this is really difficult because I'm sitting here and I'm able to adjust my seat to the perfect driving position. I can see to the end of the bonnet. I got into it and I've got unrivaled visibility for a car of this era. It's blooming fantastic. And I'm sitting here thinking, what can I tell you at home that we need to change? Well, there is one tiny thing that Fred, who's helping me film in the back, said to me, and he said, can you not hear it? And I'm pretty deaf nowadays, so I can't hear very much. And he said, the seatbelt is squeaking against the leather seat. And that, my friends at home, is our only complaint. That's the only thing we want to change, because this is everything. If you're looking for an 80s car that is sensible, that is safe, that is probably going to mean that you walk away if you're in an accident more likely than not, this might just be the car for you. And best of all, they haven't gone crazy in terms of prices. So if you want one that looks fairly okay-ish, and you're happy to settle for a hardtop and you're not needing a convertible like we've got here today, you can probably get a change out of £3,000, which to me makes it a very attractive prospect, either as a daily driver or a little toy. Now, the other thing I will say is that Craig, the owner, said to me, he said, oh, I find it quite notchy when I'm changing into second gear. But because I'm used to a lot of older stuff, I haven't found that second gear to be particularly notchy. I can recognise that it's notchier than the others, but it really isn't a distracting experience. And I think it's one of those that once you've done it a couple of times, you don't even notice it. But it could be one that if you go and view it, apparently it is a bit of a characteristic of the gearboxes on these. So if you do go and view one and you think, is this something that I need to be worried about on this particular car? It's probably not. But yes, if you are looking for an 80s car that is going to give you reliability, a little bit of sensibility, but bucket loads of fun as well, I think the Saab 900 could be the car for you. Is it the car for me? I don't know, probably not. But I can appreciate all the merits of it. I think it's jolly good fun, and it really does represent that 80s era of motoring, of functionality and fun in such a great way. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm now going to take this car out for a decent old spin, put my foot down, and in fact, let's knock it into turbo as we take care and drive safely.